Hello and welcome to this Oak Tree English video on critical thinking skills.
The British education system is grounded on critical thinking skills. This is most obviously true in the field of higher education or university. For those of us who have grown up in the UK education system, we'll find this very obvious as we've been conditioned for it all our lives. But for many from different cultures, this will seem very strange. So before you enter the British higher education sector, I warmly invite you to watch this synopsis of critical thinking skills. Critical thinking is the process that happens to information after it has been taken in. You will gain information from lectures, reading, or from YouTube videos like this. In some cultures, the aim is simply to take it in order to repeat it back again. This is a good skill to have if you're an actor rehearsing a play, but not so useful if you want to move your field of study forward and discover new things. You can think of the critical thinking process much like a mechanical process. You start with your input, usually information of some kind, and then you subject it to a process of analysis, creativity, open-mindedness, evaluation and conclusion. This can then all be presented in some form of output, like a dissertation, a research paper, or indeed a YouTube video. In this video, we're going to look at each of these things in turn. Starting with input. Now, your input can come from many different forms, such as lectures, seminars, set reading, and of course, independent reading, discussion and debate. When you hear or read some information, it's wise to assess it against certain criteria. I will suggest the tool with the undignified acronym CRAAP, C-R-A-A-P. This stands for currency, reliability, authority, accuracy, and purpose. Currency doesn't refer to how much the book costs, but rather to how current in time the information is. If you're talking about a computer design, it's no use referencing a book published 10 years ago. Reliability asks how certain the information is. Could you rest your career on it, or on its never being disproven, or is it something you wouldn't even rest your cup of tea on? This could be tested by the author or the publishing house. Authority is about the author again. Is he an expert in his field? Is this text recognized by the leading scholars on both sides of the debate? Is he employed and endorsed by universities? Has the text been peer reviewed? The next A is accuracy. Accuracy is a measurable standard. Data consists of facts, that is, things that can be tested. So if you have a mathematical treatise which confidently claims that 2 plus 2 is 236,954, you can be pretty confident that it's nonsense. Purpose is something that regular viewers will be very familiar with. Is the text written with the intention of persuading you to the author's point of view, or written to solely give information without drawing any conclusions, or written to entertain with less regard for accurate reporting? What is the purpose of the text? There is more to be said about the CRAAP tool, which you can find on an older video on this channel. I'll try and link that in. This is a picture of Josephine Effie Kipling, best beloved daughter of Rudyard Kipling. For her, he wrote, among his just so stories, The Elephant's Child, also known as How the Elephant Got His Trunk, and this accompanying poem. I keep 6 honest serving men, they taught me all I knew. Their names are what, and why, and when, and how, and where, and who. I send them over land and sea, I send them east and west, but after They have worked for me, I give them all a rest. I let them rest from 9 till 5, for I am busy then, as well as breakfast, lunch and tea, for they are hungry men. But different folk have different views. I know a person small. She keeps 10 million serving men who get no rest at all. She sends them abroad on her own affairs from the second she opens her eyes. 1 million house, 2 million wares, and 7 million wise. When you're taking in information, these are some of the questions you should be asking yourself about the author or speaker. What is the author's bias? Why have they presented that particular information in that particular way? When was this written? How do the parts of the text relate to one another? Where was it written? I.e., what cultural biases have been incorporated? Who wrote it? And who influenced them? There are, of course, many other questions you can ask in order to critically assess and critically analyze a text. These questions should prevent you from accepting any information at face value without first considering the validity of the source. When we come to critical creative thinking, we have a few disciplines to keep us steady. We should constantly reflect on our thoughts, processes, and where they have come from. This prevents us accepting things on blind faith or getting lazy. Then we should inquire through identifying, exploring, and organizing information and ideas. Never accept any source on its own, but always in connection with other sources, especially those which disagree. We should analyze both external information and our own thoughts about it. Where we can synthesize multiple sources by asking if both perspectives can be true at the same time. We can evaluate our own and other thinkers' reasoning and processes to attain the truth. The way we demonstrate critical creative thinking is to generate. This may be original ideas, unexpected possibilities, or even previously unattempted experiments and actions. It can also be key in the production of your dissertation or thesis. So this is the creative process: reflect, inquire, analyze, generate. And I forgot that I had this spinning. So there we go. When we're thinking critically, it's vital to remain open-minded. G.K. Chesterton once famously said that the purpose of an open mind, much like an open mouth, is to close it again on something solid. To retain an open mind is not to accept every wild and unreasonable thing that comes along, but rather not to reject any thought without giving it due consideration. Open-minded people have a number of valuable traits. Firstly, they're curious about the world around them, and especially about their field of study. This will lead them to read around the subject and be exposed to alternative ideas and positions to their own. They will also be open to having their assumptions and beliefs challenged, questioned, analysed, and often refuted. An open-minded person will even thank you for disproving their hypothesis, as it pushes the debate forward. They will have a strong character. What I mean by that is that they will not grow angry easily or feel inferior from a perceived insult. This is the province of weak people. They will also be empathetic and considerate towards their debater. It is a fool who believes that everyone who disagrees with them is an enemy. A strong character can hear other points of view and actively want to hear ideas that throw their own into doubt. You can spot a weak person in an argument because when they're losing, they will stop debating the issue and start throwing out insults and degrading their interlocutor. A very weak person will even throw punches. These attacks are called ad hominem, meaning against the man. The world is most in danger when weak people gain power. because they will get angry and act out of that anger. Finally, an open-minded person will have a degree of humility. Pride is a weakness. Humility is an academic strength. Socrates, the great father of philosophy and teacher of Plato, famously said, "Wisest is he who knows that he knows nothing." I personally have a maxim that helps me keep my natural pride in check. I'm a very arrogant man. I'm not very nice, really. But the thing that keeps my natural pride in check is I have never met a person I couldn't learn something from. As soon as you believe that you're the only person in the room who has anything of value to contribute, you lose the chance to learn anything from anyone else. You may well be the greatest intellect in the room, but that doesn't excuse you from listening to other people. Humility. Earlier, we talked about evaluating the input by using the CRAARP tool. That doesn't stop with sources. You can also evaluate arguments, including your own. An academic argument is not two people getting loud and annoying after a couple of pints. It consists of three parts: thesis, inference, and conclusion. The thesis is the claim or idea or proposition, sometimes called a hypothesis, which we're trying to test. The lines of inference are the reason or the rationale or the methodology being employed to assess that claim and the supporting evidence. The conclusion will be the support of that claim using strong, unbiased, objective evidence. It will also include counter-arguments, which can be employed to rigorously test the hypothesis under investigation. Notice that at no point is any idea taken for granted or presupposed. Everything must be tested, examined, and evaluated thoroughly before it's taken seriously. To evaluate the evidence, you can use the CRAARP tool, as previously mentioned, but to assess the argument, you need only find if it is sound or unsound. I stole this formula from a website called futurelearn.com, and it's good enough for me to put here in order to recommend you to watch that one. Have a look at that. So first thing you do is you identify the elements of the argument: thesis, inference, conclusion. Then you can put the argument in a standard form. So for example, all lions are cats. Leo is a lion, therefore Leo is a cat. You can classify the argument as either deductive, that is, it's trying to prove something conclusively, as in the cat example I just gave you, or non-deductive, which is only trying to show something is the most likely explanation, such as any of the classical arguments for the existence of God. The teleological argument, cosmological argument, the ontological argument, all of these are non-deductive. Then you decide if the argument is logical, with either valid or strong lines of inference. If the argument succeeds logically, you then need to assess whether the premises are true. If the premises are false, or the reasoning is invalid or weak, it is a bad argument and shouldn't be relied upon. If the reasoning is valid or strong and the premises are true, then it is a good or strong or sound argument, and you can make use of it. We can test this with the Leo example. Hello, Leo. All lions are cats. Leo is a lion. Therefore, Leo is a cat. This is a deductive argument. It uses valid reasoning. It uses true premises, and therefore it is a good argument. But if we reverse it, most cats are domestic. Leo is a cat. Therefore, Leo is most likely to be a domestic cat. This is a non-deductive argument in that it's not trying to prove something conclusively. It's giving a best case scenario. The argument is weak because there are many sorts of cats. There are many sorts of cats, and you can't say that that's going to be that he's most likely to be a domestic cat. And also the premises are also false because they're not necessarily false, they're just made up. I don't know if domestic cats are the most popular type of cat. I've no idea. I just made it up. And therefore, for all of these reasons, it's a bad argument. So you wouldn't use that one. Normally, the purpose of critical thinking is to hit on true conclusions, or, to repeat the Chesterton quote from earlier, to shut your mind on something solid. Your conclusion should be well supported by lines of inference, true premises, and solid evidence. It's also wise to put your discoveries in a wider context, such as how it pushes the bounds of knowledge back. Think of those blind men and the elephant. Your thesis should have some practical or theoretical application. You should be able to draw all the threads of your argument into one main point, a grand unified theory, so to speak. Your critical conclusion should answer the age-old question, so what? Also, who cares? So the final part of our critical thinking machine is to produce something. This will probably be an essay or a dissertation or a research paper, but it could also be a talk, a lecture, or even a YouTube video. However you are communicating your findings, please remember to proofread your work. Go over it multiple times, checking for different things. Check for SPAG, spelling, punctuation and grammar, so that your work will be taken seriously. People won't take your work seriously if you spell words wrong, if you punctuate wrong, and if your grammar is a mess. So make sure you've got that right. Check for logical contradictions or fallacies. I might do another video on logical fallacies because it's fun. Check that you've referenced every idea which is not unique to yourself. Reference everything. Check that your conclusions are supported by evidence and by inference. If all this is in place, you should have demonstrated that you have thought critically and be in line for a good mark. To conclude this particular output, the critical thinking process begins with carefully selected input, which is then analysed, creatively evaluated with an open mind to reach a conclusion, which is then communicated in a suitable format. This is how British academia operates, which is how our higher education system became the best in the world. I hope you've enjoyed this video on critical thinking. If so, please remember to like, share and subscribe to Oak Tree English. Goodbye.